Yep, that's me, and that's my brother Sterling. In May, we went to Australia to visit family, particularly our grandparents. Eventually, we did have to say goodbye, so my dad, Sterling, and I decided to end our time in New South Wales on a high note by visiting the Zig Zag Railway. The Zig Zag Railway is a tourist line in New South Wales, specifically in the Blue Mountains near the city of Lithgow. The line that Zig Zag Railway operates on today first opened in 1869 as part of the Western Railway line that linked Sydney with Western New South Wales. This railway line was used to transport people and produce from the Western Plains of New South Wales to and from Sydney. Unfortunately, in 1910, a 10-tunnel deviation was completed and the Great Lithgow Zigzag closed, and the original formation was declared as a reserve by the Crown. However, in the 1970s, an organization came together and reopened the railway line, converting it from standard gauge to narrow gauge to accompany their arsenal of Queensland-based steam locomotives and rolling stock. Nowadays, the Zig Zag Railway is only just back on its feet after several years of closure due to torrential rain, bushfires, COVID-19, as well as government regulations starting from 2012. Until very recently, aka the day I literally left the Bahamas for Australia, I had no idea the Zigzag even existed until my friend Nick, better known as Chasing Trains USA on YouTube, insisted I go because he wanted me to see a steam train for the first time. And eventually, a few days before we were scheduled to leave, we got tickets. Tickets for a round trip from Clarence to Bottom Points and back. A 90-minute adventure on the 24th of May. In the morning, we left our grandparents' house in a car we rented in Sydney and made our way to Clarence to board the train. Eventually, after an hour or so of driving, we finally made it to Clarence. It was a good 25 minutes before the train was scheduled to return to Clarence anyway, so we had plenty of time to book tickets, park, and bide our time. Upon arrival in Clarence Station, we saw a few pieces of unique rolling stock. The first two being a pair of coaches, which if I remember right are used for afternoon tea and lunch occasions. And the third one, which was not so well maintained, is either I presume a mechanized freight car, or, correct me if I'm wrong, a miner's transport. The station itself, though, had a nice gift shop with merchandise, stickers, hats, clothes, and some interesting postcards. Sorry, Thomas. After getting the tickets, I decided to come up to the end of the station to see if I could catch the train coming. I waited and waited, and yeah, it took a little bit of time. However, my patience was well rewarded when we heard the sound of a whistle. And lo and behold, it arrived.
Just like that, we meet the Yankee.
Meet Zigzag 218. As of the time of this video being published, it is the sole operating steam locomotive on the Zig Zag Railway. But this engine is no Bushman. In fact, it's a Yankee. 218 is a member of the AC-16 class, which was built by America's Baldwin Locomotive Works in 1943 for export to Queensland for wartime traffic. 218, in fact, ran for Queensland Railways from August 1943 until January 1969. And ever since then, it has been happily running for Zig Zag Railway. And today, May 24, 2025, 218 was the engine pulling our train. My dad, Sterling, and I were all seated in the brake coach, which if you ask me, was actually an ideal choice because of the views. Eventually, we were on the way. Our first stop was Top Point Station, way up in the mountains. The ride up to Top Points was not too bad at first. There was the conductor giving a history lesson on the Zigzag's origins. Unfortunately, I couldn't really get any good camera views as I didn't know how to open up the window. But eventually we managed to figure it out, and I got some much better camera views. And just in time too, when we entered the signature Zigzag. The views of the Blue Mountains were nothing short of spectacular, and I got many opportunities to take photos, of which I have plenty to share. Eventually, we got to Top Point Station, which has a signal box, and it's the singular stop in the Zig Zag Railway route. In this stage, 218 decoupled from the back of the train and moved forward to get up front for the trip to Bottom Points. There, we got many photo opportunities to see it move around. After standing idle a few moments for cab tours, 218 was on the move to Bottom Points, down the zigzag. If there could be a shining example of a picture being 1,000 words, the Zig Zag Railway would most certainly be it. On our way down, we actually took a look at the shop complex at Bottom Points. These are all the engines Zig Zag Railway owns. They range from tender engines to tank engines to diesel rail cars, regular diesels, and even a giant Garrett locomotive. All of these engines down there are awaiting various types of restoration, from cosmetic to mechanical. At Bottom Points itself, there is a NSW train link connection, as well as a water tower where the engine takes on water. Zigzag passengers are actually encouraged to watch this process, and thus many photos were taken on my end. Once 218 was ready, it moved up to the train and back again to pull it up to Top Points once again for the trip back to Clarence. Once 218 made it to the back of the train, it buffered up to the brake coach, and we watched one of the railway workers actually fasten the coupling. Link and chain couplings are a manual affair as opposed to knuckle couplers in the USA. The chains have to be tightened to ensure they're not loose, and the air hoses have to be connected, much like all sorts of coupling systems. Once we were done, the train was ready to go, and we were back to Top Points, and from there, Clarence. The train passed Bottom Points shops once again, where I took a look at all the engines yet again for some more footage. All of these engines will one day be in a more presentable state than they are right now. In fact, one of the steamers is set to come back this year. But only time will tell in that regard. We made it to Top Points once again and turned around once again on our way to Clarence. This was an unforgettable experience for both my father, who did this trip as a kid, Sterling, and myself. This was our first taste of a real steam locomotive, and thus I think it's fair that the video does the rest of the talking. Our trip with Zigzag ended right where it started. Thus, we got back in the car and drove on, homeward bound and full of memories.
It's Thomas.
Oh yeah, I forgot. We brought a friend. Let's see his adventures in another video.